Yes, guys, welcome to the Game Week 5 Deadline live stream. Hope everyone is doing well. I apologise once again for being late to my own stream. Took the dog out for a walk, went a bit further than I intended, looked at the time, realised I was 10 minutes late. So I do apologise, but we're now live. And we got so much time until the deadline, just over 2 hours until, of course, that Game Week 5 deadline. So we have got plenty of time just to go through everything that we need to. We got to talk about whether this Merseyside derby is going ahead. I think it obviously is going to. We got to talk about the situation with Erling Haaland, how we're going to get him in it, at what time, and of course, generally ahead of Game Week 5, why it's looking a bit of a drab game week, and whether actually rolling the tracks of this week is justifiable for a lot of managers, or whether we actually need to be a bit more aggressive with our moves and taking maybe some plans in attacking areas that maybe aren't being discussed. So we'll talk about all that in today's live stream, but of course the main thing is answering all of your questions. So please, if you haven't already, say hello in the chat. Let me know where you're tuning in from. Let me know any dilemmas that you do have. If I don't address them straight away, it's probably because I'm holding off to talk about it as a hot topic in a following section. So let's just spend a couple of minutes seeing who's about in the chat, and then we will get into it. I do apologise. I'm a little bit hot and flustered as always, but I think we're all good now. So let's take a look at some of the people in the chat. Ollie, hope you're doing well, mate. Bit of a predicament since I was a bit of a numpty in wildcard in 2, which is not a bad thing. Now wanted to know whether a free hit in 6 or gain an extra transfer and then have it for 8. Ollie, let me know what your team looks like. It'll probably be a bit easier to have a bit of an idea of what is going on. More Tritnik, hope you're doing well, mate. Damien as well. Any news on the weather in Liverpool? I can tell you it is looking... Let's have a look. What we're saying about Liverpool, guys. It is, as we speak... If anyone is in Liverpool, please do let me know. For context, the Met Office put out a weather warning ahead of the Merseyside derby, and there was talk about how it possibly might get it impacted with travel from obviously supporters. But I think we all know deep down it is going to obviously go ahead. Lots of rain, but it doesn't look like there is going to be anything that impacts it. I hope that's not the case. Would love if the Liverpool game got called off. It would be carnage. Jemima, hope you're doing well. Confirming Liverpool is fine. Thank you so much for that one, Jemima. Hunterico is saying, would love it if the game's cancelled. Hey, Nacho, hope you're doing well. Start Reinders and have double City attack, or Steve home to Forest. Well, I think the problem is with the FPL community is that you do get caught in a little bit of a bubble. So you're probably seeing a lot of people bench boost with people like Esteve and, of course, Dubravka. And it's a bit like, ooh, maybe I need a piece of that Burnley defence. Now, really, I'm expecting Burnley to concede in that game. But Reinders up against one of the best defences in the league is also not an ideal scenario. Spoiler alert, am playing Reinders just because I'm a little bit more entailed to... I prefer playing attackers as opposed to defenders. However, I do think in some situations you can lean towards the defenders this season, with, of course, defensive contributions being a huge factor. So if we just bring up my team right now to give you an idea of where I'm currently sat, I've just caught myself. I look atrocious. I do apologise. I look like an absolute just horrendousness. You can tell I've been on a dog walk. So let me just get my team up a minute for you guys, and you can see it here. So let's just make this a bit more of a pleasurable experience, because I'm still not over the site being this bad. It's still so damn bad. So that's how the team's looking right now. Bit of context, 1.5 million in the bank, 1 free transfer. So in terms of my team, you can see we're in a position where we've got Murillo injured and Esteve as my first sub. He is going to be my direct replacement for Murillo if he doesn't feature. But we were talking about Esteve, weren't we? So in terms of the defensive contributions, because of course, if you said to me last season, I want to play a Burnley defender, I know they weren't in the Premier League, but I would have said to you, you're a maniac, because yes, they might get a clean sheet, but that's really it. This season, slightly different, as we know, because even if Burnley don't keep a clean sheet, we do have a certain thing called defensive contributions. So he racked up 15 against Liverpool, which is very good. 8 against Man United. Just checking if he played 90 in all of these. Yes. 7 against Sunderland and 8 against Spurs. And it's worth noting, Burnley have had a tough old start to the season. I don't actually think we can gauge where Burnley are at as a team. I didn't notice how tough that was. Spurs, United, Liverpool. They then got Forest, City, and then Aston Villa. A ridiculous start to the season for Burnley. So I think the fact that they won that Sunderland game really shows how important that was. So there definitely is a chance that he does get defensive contributions. So if we're saying he does, let's just say he does. He's going to get probably a floor of 3 points. 2 for the defensive contributions. Let's say he ships a few goals, possibly. So 3 points. That's probably better than Reinders, would we say? I think Reinders has been fantastic, but I just rate this Arsenal defence so highly that Reinders, I would say, probably walks away with a 2-pointer. So by that logic, I probably would say Steve starts over Reinders. I, for one, am in a situation where I'm starting Reinders, but I'm almost anticipating Murillo not to start. So I think I will end up being in a situation where I play both Reinders and Steve. I don't think double Spurs defence is the one this week off the back of Champions League football. And, of course, playing a Brighton team who are just so good offensively. I think one Spurs is enough this week, to say the least. And Van de Ven is not very good on defensive contributions. I don't really know where they are going, but I believe it is in Romero. Romero is the one that is racking them up right now. So, Emma saying snow incoming in the Liverpool-Everton game postponed. That would be crazy. Nacho Monreal from Arsenal, or are they just twins? Well, that is the reason for the Nacho name. I never saw it, but I've looked at pictures and I can see it now. So, yeah, I do kind of get it. It's not the worst thing in the world. I've had people like Modric and Peter Crouch because I am quite tall as well. So, I would take Nacho Monreal as the name as opposed to Crouchy or Modric. I'll let you be the judge on that one. Somebody saying, this week in isolation. Is it this week in isolation? Is that in terms of like an illness? Let me know. Don't obviously go to detail about it if you don't want to, but yeah, that sounds not a good thing. Keeping Barnes or using one transfer for either Gakpo, Semenyo. Greetings from the Netherlands. Keep it up. Appreciate it so much on that one. Keeping Barnes or using one transfer for either Gakpo or Semenyo. So I think the big thing here is identifying what are the fixtures for Newcastle in the foreseeable future and what is the risk of Barnes, because with Voldemada now coming in, I anticipate Gordon to go out on that left-hand side eventually, and most likely Elanga on the right, competing with Jacob Murphy. So I would make the argument that Barnes, long-term, is going to be a bit of an issue. When we take a look at the fixtures for this particular week, Newcastle have got Bournemouth away, and then the following week, Newcastle are playing Arsenal at home. So it's not a good next 2 game weeks. On the flip side, if you can put yourself in a position where you can buy Semenyo, I think that's the route that I would go. You can get Newcastle at home. Of course, they just play Barcelona on Thursday night, so Bournemouth are in a really strong position there. Then in game week 6, Bournemouth have got Leeds. So I think over those next 2 game weeks, Semenyo significantly outscores Barnes. And for that reason, I do think if you're in a position where you can do so, I probably would get rid of Barnes and bring in Semenyo and just get it done. That would be my choice over Gakpo, because I think Gakpo's good, but I think those minutes are very hard to predict. We've seen Wirtz go out to the left-hand side. We think Ekitike can play on the left-hand side as well. So I think Gakpo is a bit of a problem. Do you want me to say, can you give a captaincy ranking for us non-Salah owners? Absolutely, I can. So this is a tough game week, by the way. This is a really, really tricky game week. What I'm going to bring up here is anyone that's checked out Rob T over on Twitter, on X, working with Solio Analytics, please do check them all out. Obviously, I'm using their data here. This is not mine. Please do follow them for way more up-to-date stuff on this. But this is what was posted, I believe, a couple of days ago. And you can see in terms of the projected goals and clean sheet odds for this game week, it ain't good. Liverpool at 2.11, and that's it. Arsenal at 1.65, Chelsea at 1.61, Brighton at 1.61. It is a drab affair. Also, the clean sheets aren't fantastic. So based on the bookies, it effectively is looking like something where there's going to be a lot of 1-alls out there. Like, it is going to be a rubbish old game week based on this. Of course, this doesn't predict the future. Things can change. But also, when I bring up the fixtures from a just football fan perspective, this is game week 6. Liverpool-Everton, that's just always a bit of a drab game, I feel. It's entertaining, but it isn't free-flowing goals necessarily in that game. Brighton Spurs, I feel like could have goals, but again, Do you own any Brighton or Spurs in either of those teams? Probably not. Burnley, Forest, again, I would love to sit here and say captain Chris Wood. That probably is in the top 3. However, Burnley have shown that they can defensively put a tough test up against anybody. We don't really know what Ange is going to do with Chris Wood, whether Igor is going to get more minutes than what he had under Nuno. So Chris Wood has to be in the debate. I don't really fancy any West Ham player if you own them. And Palace, Mateta, we've seen Glasner come out and state that Mateta is struggling a little bit from fatigue. So I can't really sit here right now and guarantee you a full 90 minutes from Mateta now that Enquiries is back. Wolves against Leeds, Strand Larsen for 60 maybe. Looking at the rest of the fixtures right now, I'm going to be honest. I think it is a terrible game week. I don't think anybody really trusts Aston Villa, and I'm one of those that sat there with double Villa with Watkins and Rodgers. So I'm in a spot where I'm praying for a Villa performance. I'm going to say Bruno Fernandes. I'm probably going to put Bruno Fernandes in the category. The reason being is this. I'm a Chelsea fan, and I think Chelsea, and I've said this week in, week out, are poor defensively. I've been getting bashed in the comments. We're not good defensively. We're weak in the central zones at times. Caicedo basically carries us in games. And Sanchez always does have a clanger, even though I would say the start of this season, he's been a bit better. So I think Man United are going to offer some goal threat in this game. Off the back of a Champions League game as well, away against Bayern Munich, I do think Chelsea are the better team, don't get me wrong, but I do think Man United will cause problems in this game. The return of Cunha, Mason Mount, he can play him down the middle if he doesn't want to play Sesko, who's been pretty poor. So for that reason, I think the answer is Bruno Fernandes if you don't have it. Of course, if you have Erling Haaland, I would put Haaland over Bruno, even though it is against Arsenal, who I believe are the best defence in the league. I still would back Haaland over Bruno. Otherwise, Bruno Fernandes would be the one. But I get it. It's not ideal this week because Mo Salah is quite an easy one to go for. Gavin saying, morning mate, would you bring in Anderson or Harvey Elliott on a transfer? Well, I think it's difficult because we don't really know what is going to go on with Anderson as a pick under Ange. Obviously, Anderson was fantastic for defensive contributions. I know he only hit it once, but he was on the threshold a number of times. So if I just bring up the player profiles a minute for you, you'll be able to see this on your screens, don't worry. So this is Anderson on your screens here. In terms of defensive contributions, you can see here, 15 against Arsenal, 11 against West Ham, 11. So he's been really close to hitting them on countless occasions. When we actually come into the expected goal involvement, it was fantastic in the first game week. But since then, it's been a little bit underwhelming, to say the least, in the other games. And that has kind of reflected the performances of Forest as a team because the results have not been great. So I think it's really difficult right now with Anderson because we're getting into a period where this game here is really hard to predict. Then they got Sunderland, but we have to remember they also have Europa League football in between the two. So that is going to really impact it. Then they got Newcastle, Chelsea, Bournemouth, and a tricky run long term. The issue for me with Harvey Elliott is I don't know yet whether he is a player that is going to play each and every week. And I think he is great for probably this run, but after that, long-term, the fixtures are difficult. I think if I was buying one right now, the logical answer would be Anderson. But I think the fun and more exciting pick that has a higher ceiling would be that of Harvey Elliott. So it depends what you want to do. I like the idea of rolling the dice on Harvey Elliott, but I just don't know whether he is going to get the guaranteed game time that you are going to want in your team. Nacho, morning buddy, help. Bench boost happening, but I'm doing Gooey out and have 6.7 for 1 week punt. Who? Are you getting rid of Gay or Muniz? Oh, DCL, Brentford striker. Cheers, matey. Well, is it for a 1 week punt? Because afterwards, are you not going to want that player? So I'm interested to know why it is a 1 week punt necessarily. But if we are looking at 6.7 for a forward right now, I'm just trying to get the prices up because I need to remind myself who they are. So 6.7, we can grab ourselves Strand Larsen. Would be my choice. Now, the problem with it is you're saying a 1 week punt. If it isn't a 1 week punt and you're looking a bit longer, for me, the answer is Strand Larsen, because you get Leeds, Spurs, Brighton, Sunderland, Burnley. Fantastic fixtures. So I think Strand Larsen would be the answer a bit more long term. We know he's available, but we know he won't play 90, so I get it. As a bench boost, you probably don't love that as a pick, but you have to consider Strand Larsen 100%. If you're just looking at this game week in isolation, and that is it, well, it comes down to the fixtures. Who are the forwards that you really want to go for? Well, if you're looking at a forward at 6.7, Thiago, I just don't really like that fixture against Fulham at all. You can't afford Evan Nielsen, so your options are pretty limited. So I'd probably say Strand Larsen as a choice. Otherwise, it would be Thiago for guaranteed minutes, but I don't love the choice regardless. I probably would roll the dice for Strand Larsen and hope that he does get some decent minutes. Why Bruno again? He plays in a more defensive role now. Jonathan, that is true. 100% that he does play in a bit more of a defensive role. But when we look at his numbers here, obviously a penalty skews it that he had against Burnley and one that he had against Fulham, I believe. But I still think Bruno Fernandes playing 90 minutes in this Man United team is still a decent choice. Are you not afraid Ange starts Murillo and he limps off after 20? He had a bad record of starting Murillo before they were fit. Yep, I think that is a fair point, but I also just think if they have passed him fit, I gotta take the punt, really. And if he does go on and limp off after 20, I think that is just bad luck, really. I'm happy to take the risk and start Murillo and hope for the best. My assumption is he starts and he plays, and then whatever happens afterwards happens. I think I'm willing to take that risk, knowing that I've got a Burnley defender to come in. So I think what we'll do is keep putting the question in the chat, guys. I want to just quickly show you what my long-term plans are, because I'm in a bit of a spot right now with my team. So let me just show you where we're at. So this is how my team is currently looking going into this game week, just as Steve. And by the way, if you haven't checked out a planner, I do recommend Plan FPL. It's so good. I love the layout. I was a little bit dubious at the start, but I do really like it now. I think the whole thing's great. I love the fixture ticker here. Just gives you a bit more of an easier view. So if you're looking at longer term planning, which I'm going to be honest with you, is even more important than ever, because we've got chips that we got to use, all that good stuff, I do recommend some sort of planner. So this is decent. So I got 1.5 million in the bank, one free transfer. So the first question I have to always ask myself is, how's the team looking? Well, the team is on its last legs, it's safe to say. I don't care about the goalkeeper. Double Spurs defence is not great long-term. However, I do think they're better under Thomas Frank. And when we look at the fixtures for Spurs, where are they playable as a double in the worst case scenario? Absolutely playable in game week 6. Absolutely playable in game week 7. I'm probably going to say after that, it's done. So I do think, even though I'm sat here with double Spurs, is it the worst thing in the world if I had to roll out double Spurs in 6 and 7? No. So therefore, I'm not putting Spurs as a problem right now, because they're actually all right defensively. This isn't the Ange Spurs team that we've seen in the past. I think Thomas Frank is happy to shithouse games sometimes and get the win, which is actually a joy to watch as a defensive owner. And very, very dependent on set pieces, which was great before Xavi Simons signed. Now that he's signed and taken set pieces away from Pedro Porro, it's diminished Pedro Porro as a player, which has to be noted. Porro is basically dead as an FPL option now, but is he one that is desperate for me to sell? No, I don't believe so. Murillo, of course, is a huge problem, but with the doubts that have been cast by Ange, saying he might make it, he might not. If we don't get any news between now and the deadline, I'm just going to play him and hope for the best, because there is value still in him. He still offers something in game week 6 at home against Sunderland with a very quick ejection out of my team from game week 7 onwards, because he's 5.5 million. It is too much invested in my team. And Anderson for me is fantastic. The fixtures are going to get a little bit ropey, as you can see. Villa, Bournemouth, Arsenal, Newcastle. Then they're not too bad afterwards. But what I do like is that if I have to play Anderson at 4.5 million in a tough game, you can just give me 2 points for defensive contributions because he's an absolute joke. And naturally, the tougher the fixture, the higher chance of getting defensive contributions because he's spending more time in his box, kicking and heading the ball out. And as we know by now, clearances is where defenders get their points. And that is basically what Anderson is doing each and every week. So rolling a player out like Anderson in a tough fixture is not as bad as what it used to be because you're almost guaranteeing yourself 2 points for 90 minutes, 2 points for defensive contributions, and then it's just whatever negative comes off that for how many goals they concede. In terms of my midfielders, things I don't need to talk about. Mo Salah is not a topic for this week. It is one for next week, but we'll talk about that when I preview game week 6. Bruno Fernandes, not an issue for me. He is in the team. I don't think I need to sell him. And also it's worth noting, when you look at the right-hand side here for players, Palmer's only just coming back from injury, looked great against Bayern Munich, but I need to see him play another 90. Saka's injured. Marmoush is injured. Wirtz is giving nobody confidence. Mbeumo and Cunha will be options once Amorim goes. Until then, not really. Odegaard injured. Foden, absolutely a pick, but not for this game week away against Arsenal. So Bruno stays. Rodgers. Boy, oh boy, have you tested my nerve. Now, what I will say this about Rodgers. He is way more on the chopping block than that of Watkins. Because anyone that's seen Rodgers' numbers, holy moly, they are terrible. Expected goal involvement per 90 minutes. Well, let's just do total. 0.5. 0.5 in 4 matches where he's played 90 minutes in every single one. Rodgers is doing nothing. Like literally nothing, and he's 7 million. So he's a disaster for my team. Problem. Will he play 90 minutes once again? I think the answer to that is becoming more and more unclear. But I do think we're in a position right now where he's still going to play. Sunderland away. You can't sell him ahead of Sunderland away. Then Fulham at home. And then Burnley at home. So what I'm going to say is this. Rodgers is absolutely a problem. 100%. But is it a problem enough where I have to sit here right now and say to you, I've got to ship him out in this moment with Sunderland away? Maybe I'm being completely biased, but the answer for me is no. The answer is no. Reinders away against Arsenal, not great, but he's there for game week 6 effectively, and it is what it is. And then a front three is João Pedro, Watkins, and Wood. Spoke about this. I think João Pedro's great. I think he's overhyped a little bit. I do think he is going to be a sacrificial lamb for me eventually. Watkins, same boat as Rodgers, but he's actually putting up okay numbers. I'm anticipating Watkins to get back to some sort of form eventually. Chris Wood is on borrowed time. The reason being is new management in charge with Ange. No idea who he actually prefers out of the two. The fact that Igor started midweek suggests to me Wood will play on the weekend. If we can get these two out of Chris Wood, brilliant, then we ship him out the team. But if we get 60 minutes of Wood against Burnley, I will be selling Chris Wood for Erling Haaland in game week 6 with no guarantees of him starting and Europa League football to compete with in between these two fixtures, which will cause huge issues for our game time. So, could I improve this team this week? 100%. But when I look at the fixtures for this week, well, what am I doing? Where am I going? I could get a Liverpool defender, but it doesn't feel absolutely desperate. Don't want to touch that game. Don't want to touch that game. Don't want to touch that game. I don't want Palace in that game, really. And West Ham, who knows? Don't really want to touch that outside of what I got. Already got Fulham defence. Got double Villa. Yes, this is the big one. Semenyo. Now, I could just do Rodgers or Semenyo this week and get it done. 100%. And maybe it is something that I'm being stubborn about. And maybe I should just pull the trigger and get it done. But let me show you the reason why I'm hesitant. Game week 6 is a huge week. Now, let me play the team that I probably will feature with the assumption that Murillo is available. The team would look like this. Pretty good. I would happily roll this team if I wanted to. But when you look at the fixtures on the right-hand side, United away against Brentford, I'll take Bruno and that's it. That's all I want. Bournemouth away against Leeds, good fixture. Again, I want a piece of Bournemouth if I can. City at home against Burnley. I've got Reinders, I've got nobody else. So that might need to be addressed. Palace against Liverpool, once again, don't feel like I need any more Liverpool. Don't feel like I need any Palace. Chelsea, Brighton, I'll happily take what I got. Forest against Sunderland, I've got double Forest. That's all I really want in that. Spurs against Wolves, I've got double Spurs. I'm happy with that. Got double Villa for Fulham. Don't want to touch the Newcastle Arsenal game. I don't have any of either. And then we've got Everton, West Ham. Once again, I've got Dewsbury Hall if I want him. So this is the big week here because this could be Salah out. And again, we're saying this cautiously, but if we were to sell Salah, who do I sell Erling Haaland to? Well, the big question is, what is the following game week? Well, game week 7, Wood goes away against Newcastle. Watkins has Burnley. So I kind of want to keep that. So really, when I look at this right now, I think the logical answer, even though he has Sunderland at home, is to possibly ship out Chris Wood, controversially, which I don't love the idea of. But possibly Wood out if we are thinking his game time is going to become a bit more limited, and bringing in Erling Haaland and giving me 1.8 million in the bank still. I feel like that's how my team could look. Watkins is the obvious sacrificial lamb, but we need to remember game week 7 does exist. Let me just reset this game week. And the team would look like this for game week 7, which once again, I think looks pretty decent. However, what we need to consider in game week 7 is the pivot of things. And that is where this comes in handy. Again, Rob T data. What we're looking at here is the top defences over the next 6 game weeks. So as you can see, Arsenal with 5 and 6, still putting up good numbers. But if you said to me right now, am I desperate for Arsenal against City and Newcastle? No. What I am desperate for is that sea of orange from game week 7 onwards. Basically, anything dark orange effectively means 50% or close to clean sheet odds. You want a piece of that defence. That's why game week 7, Arsenal defence is just absolutely essential for your teams. When you cast your eye onto the top attacks, you can see Man City in this game week, you don't really need it based on the bookies odds. But from game week 6 onwards, just look at the dark blues. That is basically close to 2 projected goals per game. Hence why I think you need a plan in place for Erling Haaland. Now again, looking at Liverpool, that looks fantastic as well. But what I like the idea of for me is selling Mo Salah in game week 6, go into Erling Haaland, knowing I've got a wild card in the back pocket, that when we get to game week 8, if we suddenly say to ourselves, you know what, the optimal team is Mo Salah and Haaland, I pull the trigger, I restructure the team, and we keep both of them in for the longer term. So with that in mind, game week 7 is going to be all about bringing in those Arsenal players, and that is where, goodbye my friend, Murillo will leave the team for most likely a Saliba or a Gabriel, depending on which one offers the most value. So that will most likely be my move for this game week, with most likely Anderson going on the bench, and that'll be game week 7. And then we reassess in game week 8 with the team and understand how the team should look. So that's the long-term plans. I just wanted to ramble through. I do apologise. It did take a little bit of a time, but I want to show you where I'm at. Why? Yes, game week 5 absolutely can look fantastic this week, and I could improve it. But why? Maybe in the following week, there is just some value in rolling the transfer. So let's take a look at some of the chat now, guys. I do apologise for the ramblings, but hopefully that has made a bit of sense there. I just want to quickly check to see what is going on here. Sorry guys, I'm just double checking to see on Twitter if there has been any sort of updates on anything. Can't see anything on Twitter. Right, let's get back into the chat. And again, if you guys are enjoying it, I don't think I've mentioned it. If you could drop a like on the stream, always massively appreciated. We always aim for 50 likes on these streams. And if you haven't already, and you want to, hit that subscribe button. Always massively appreciated on here. Okay. let's get back into it. Let's get back into the chat. So, start Juve or Tarkowski? Well, based on this game week, let's just get the, again, market odds up here a little bit, because I like to give my own opinion and also look at just data that effectively can't be argued based on the bookies, and then we can come to our own conclusions. So, Juve obviously has that game against Palace, not ideal. Tarkowski away against Everton. Based on the bookies odds, the answer is Juve. I would say Tarkowski is going to 100% hit defensive contributions, which is something that we absolutely have to consider, which isn't involved here. So from that basis, if I make the assumption that I think Palace are going to score, I need to look at whether Juve actually gets defensive contributions. Be astonished if he does in a left wing back role. Juve has been close on 2 occasions, so he does have the potential to hit it, but my personal opinion is I'll play Tarkowski because he hits defensive contributions. That would be my thought process. I have Porro, Truffert, Dewsbury Hall on the bench. Would you start any sells? No, I'll keep the bench how it is. I think that bench kind of picks itself based on what you've done. GV saying, Liverpool vs Everton will always be a high voltage game. A few seasons back, both teams had a red card. Can we expect a red card today with Everton playing well under David Moyes? Yeah, possibly. We always know that them games are really, really like high tempo, as always. Everton offering a bit more offensively, I would argue. Is that going to hinder them a little bit? Might they be a little bit poorer off ball against Liverpool? We saw them ship 2 goals against Wolves, was it? So maybe we're seeing a slightly different Everton team this year where, yes, they've got the same back 4, but maybe they've got a bit more flair in their team, which means the game might open up a bit more than what it has done before. Whereas we've seen basically shithouse players playing where they just are there to really lock up a game. Maybe if we do see Grealish and Dewsbury Hall in that team, we might see a bit more of an expansive Everton side, which could actually play beneficial to Liverpool and their attackers. Sell Ekitike for Pedro. Would I sell Ekitike this week? No. My personal opinion, with Isak starting the Champions League game and Ekitike starting the season really well, is that Ekitike will start. Now, again, please don't take that as gospel. We're all predicting Arne Slot right now, unfortunately. Almost turning into Pep Guardiola 2.0. But if I owned Ekitike, I would roll him out once more. But with the knowledge that he probably is going to be a player I have to sell eventually, because you don't want that headache each and every week. Fakaro is going to captain Lacroix. Don't mind it. We know he's going to hit defensive contributions in basically every game. Do I think there are better players? Yes. If you own Mo Salah, I think that's a logical pick. But otherwise, I think it's fine to do that. Should I wildcard if my team consists of Milenkovic, Frimpong, De Cooper, Sanchez, Vicario, Porro, Bowen, Baliba, Reinders, Rogers, Salah, Ekitike, Pedro? I think you could roll out a team this week. I think you probably go for flip a coin with the goalkeepers, really. But you probably would play Milenkovic, Frimpong, and Milenkovic, Frimpong, and Porro. You play Bowen, Rogers, Salah. No, I think that team's absolutely fine. Baliba obviously not ideal, but maybe you can make a transfer as opposed to a wild card. Yeah, GV's making a great point here. Do you do 2 free transfers in game week 6, or should you actually use the wild card, keep the 2 free transfers in the back pocket, and then use them later down the line? That's definitely something to consider. Obviously, now that the rules have changed, we've had them for 2 seasons now. Whereas before, if you had 2 transfers and you used your wild card, you then come back to 1 free transfer. That's different now if you didn't know that. So, for example, if you take my team, if I go to game week 6 with 2 free transfers, then I use my wild card here. In game week 7, I'll come back to 2 free transfers. So a wild card in game week 6 is quite a powerful move. But I would say to you, if you are in that situation where you're saying you're going to use 2 free transfers in game week 7 to bring in Arsenal players, I would actually just bring in Arsenal players in your wild card team. Who are you bringing in for a 1-week punt and then sell? You could do that. and be really aggressive in game week 6, for example, bring in a Man City defender and then sell them the following week for an Arsenal player. That's not a bad move. Something to consider. I don't think it's a right or wrong answer, I'm going to be honest with you. Something we can address in game week 6, possibly. Salah for me is a standout captain for anyone looking at it. Jamil saying, Nacho, I need a good replacement for Ismaila Sarr. Okay, so Sarr's a really difficult one because Sarr is in a position where he's going to be back from game week 6, we believe. So if we look at Ismaila Sarr, he's missing this game, but then afterwards, I make the argument he actually becomes quite a good player. Everton, Bournemouth, Arsenal, Brentford, good long-term fixtures. So if you can allow yourself to keep him for one more week, then I would do so. I think there's value in Sarr afterwards. However, if you're looking to then sell him at 6.5 million, then of course we do need to look at what we can get ourselves. Now, if you don't have money in the bank, 6.5 million is a really difficult price bracket, really, to buy anybody. I would make the argument maybe you could go down to a cheaper option. But again, Reinders is not a great option this week against Arsenal. So my question to you is, can you keep him for 1 week and then have him for game week 6 where I believe he's decent? Elliott has always been an impact sub for Liverpool under Klopp. Yes, agree on that one, but hopefully this is his time to kind of shine, really. Wildcard 5 team. I would say that is something that I would check out my previous video. I don't think I have got my wildcard team available on this stream, but I did do a video on a wildcard game week 5 team. So please do check that out. It's live. I think it's like 15 minutes long. You obviously can just skip to the wildcard 5 section and check it out. So I didn't cover that one. Good morning for Oslo. Hope you're doing well. Good morning, actually. Should I start Petrovic or Dubravka? Ooh, it's tough. It's tough. Again, if we looked at the bookies odds, Dubravka's got a 24% chance of a clean sheet. And who's the other option you mentioned? Bournemouth. They got a 26. Now we take into account our own personal opinions. Forest going to be a bit more attacking, we would think, with Ange in charge. Newcastle off the back of a Thursday night game against Barcelona, maybe a little bit fatigued. Probably would lean towards the home team in the home team. I probably would lean towards Petrovic myself. I think Forest is still a really good team. I still think they're a good team. Bench boost with Rutter, Porro, Esteve, and Dubravka. So I don't mind this sort of. This is a very common bench boost. Double Burnley, some sort of defender, in this case Porro and Rutter. I don't know the status on Rutter, so maybe let me know if he's actually available and what his game time has been like. Let's just take a look right now. I'll take a look in the background. I won't put it up on the screen because it's just pointless for you guys. So Jorginho Rutter's played 66 minutes in game week 4. So our assumption that he's back, but probably only plays 60 minutes against Spurs. Look, I don't mind it. If you want to get the bench boost out of the way, I think it's fine. But what this game week is showing us is that you kind of can play a bench boost whenever you want to. Like, I'm not going to bother showing you what my team looks like each and every week because it will change. But you will just get weeks where your team just looks good and you pull the trigger. Like, you could look at my team in game week 7. You could argue that's a bench boost team. I think if you're happy with it, get it done. I think it looks great. For my team, as an example, I don't love it because I got the injury to Murillo. I don't love a bench boost for myself. Why is Wood not a good choice for captaincy? Would he be a better choice than Salah? So I personally prefer Salah because he's a midfielder, gets an additional point for clean sheets and for a goal, plays for a better team. Wood, I think, is a good choice. However, Ange is given a clean slate to this team. Doesn't mean that Chris Wood is now the main guy. We could see Igor come in and get minutes. Now, what is his actual name? I always just call him Igor. So it's Igor Jesus. Igor Jesus of Forest. Scored 2 goals midweek. Doesn't mean anything. but I think Igor Jesus is going to get minutes in every game. Therefore, I think Wood's minutes will deteriorate. We know Wood was basically the only forward for Nuno last season because he had no direct competition and the team was built around him. I think Wood starts this week, but I don't think he's a 90-minute man. Is Kusanov, Doku an option? Johnny, not for this game week, but absolutely we need to consider them for future game weeks. I don't actually know what Kusanov is coming in at. 5.4 million is too expensive for me for a player that could easily be sat on the bench at Burnley at home, where they don't necessarily need his recovery pace in certain games, but he is starting to establish himself as a bit more of a key defender in that team. I think Man City will eventually land on their best defence. It probably does consist of, really? I don't rate ignoring myself defensively. I think he's a good offensive player. So with the players they have available to them, I mean, O'Reilly at left back offering just that frame that he does, 6 foot plus, just kind of that physical prowess. Vardy has to play centre back alongside Diaz. That's their best combination. I think Stones is a bit washed now. And then Kusanov on that right hand side for that recovery pace. So I wouldn't be surprised if Pep just lands on that 4 and just plays them each and every week. But that doesn't mean that at times what offers Rico Lewis on the ball could see him go into pockets and play in games against Burnley. So for that reason, I probably would be a little bit against buying Kusanov. Doku, same thing applies. Great for now, but once Marmoush is back, I see minutes getting shared. Would I bench boost with Dubravka, Steve, Elliot Anderson and Juve? That is definitely a bench boostable team. I think I like that. Guaranteed minutes across the board. Decent enough fixtures. Yes, I think that is bench boostable, but now you have to make the decision whether you want to bench boost effectively. Leroy, wow, hi boss, I'm an Arsenal fan. I don't know if I captain Palmer or Haaland. Oh, this is tough because, of course, Palmer did go off with that groin injury, so we don't really know what the status is on him. I predict he plays, but I don't actually know what the answer is. So for that reason, I probably would say I probably would take the punt on Palmer, because I just think Arsenal was so good defensively. And hope we get some news before the deadline, maybe, on his availability. I've activated my bench boost. I have Dubravka, Van de Ven, Reinders, Anderson on my bench. I have Baladia. Look, it's fine. Look, do I like Van de Ven away against Brighton? No. Do I like Reinders away against Arsenal? No. But do I think there's value in just using it in a week? You have 4 guaranteed players who are going to play? Yes. So I don't mind it. I don't mind it. For context, the reason why I'm not doing it is because Murillo is a doubt, and I don't feel compelled enough myself to bench boost this team. Personally, Dubravka's always going to be playing. Esteve's always going to be playing. So these two, even though it looks good this week, well, it looks fine, I also would make the argument like every week they're going to be available for Burnley. So eventually Burnley will land on good fixtures. Like if we just roll them out, look, game week 8. Now, yes, I got double Villa, but game week 8 they've got Leeds. Game week 9 they got Wolves. Like, they got good fixtures, and they will eventually land on weeks that look good. For me, 8 is a week that could be considered. 9's a week that could be considered. Which 2 should I start for today among Haaland, Pedro, and Gyökeres? You only have to start 2. Well, you obviously start Haaland. You just don't bench Haaland. I probably would start Pedro. I probably would, but I think I would find a way to start all 3. Do I start both with Steve and Porro or bring in Xavi? If you own Xavi, I would be tempted to start him over Porro, possibly, and have the attacking Spurs player. Soul saying, took a minus 32 by accident. If I play my wildcard now, do I get my points back or are they gone? Yeah, so if you activate your wildcard now, and I would recommend you doing so now that you've accidentally taken a minus 32, you will not have a minus 32. You are just using your wildcard now. So it's all good. But yes, you should either hit your wildcard now or your free hit, whichever one you want to. My recommendation probably would be the wildcard, because I think a free hit is quite a difficult one to build here. Play Wirtz or Grealish. I don't know whether Wirtz plays. Don't know whether Wirtz plays. I think Grealish does. I think Liverpool is still ropey at the back. Gonna say Grealish. What do you think of selling Wirtz for Semenyo and selling Watkins for Richarlison this week? Don't love the Richarlison pick because we've got Kolo Muani, who also can get game time for Spurs. I think Richarlison is good. Do I want him this week? I don't think you do. Watkins away against Sunderland just makes no sense for me. Wirtz to Semenyo, I'm all behind that move though. Am I crazy with Semenyo captaincy and Salah vice? Newcastle had a tough game versus Barca, so thinking Bournemouth could score a few. Yes, don't mind that at all. Fabian Schär also out. I might get a bit of a poll going actually, just to see who everyone is captaining. Who is your game week 5 captain? So we've got Salah, of course. We've got... who are popular captains right now? Haaland, but I don't see a lot. Semenyo's getting a lot of love. And if I just put other, and you can let me know in the comments who the other one is, I'll be interested to know. But again, just for context, my plan is to roll the transfer. I absolutely do agree that Semenyo is a transfer that I would love to make. But I think having 2 transfers available in game week 6 in my back pocket just gives me the flexibility to make transfers. Just for context, this would be the classic Salah out to Semenyo, Wood to Haaland move that I think a lot of people will eventually do. I think this team looks fine. Obviously, the captaincy would be on Haaland. Vice probably would be on Semenyo or someone. And then game week 6, the plan would be, where the team looks good, to sell Murillo, bring in Gabriel, have a piece of that defence. Don't think I would take a -4 in this week. And then in game week 8, reassess, see what happens. So much can happen between now and then. But on the face of it, I probably would roll out Dubravka against Leeds, or at least maybe play a Steve. But what I know in game week 8 is that it is going to be time to get rid of players. The time will be up for Villa. Inevitably, they'll start scoring over this period. But I think my hand might get forced a little bit in game week 8 to use a wild card possibly. And ship out some players in game week 8. And really, when we're looking at the fixtures from game week 8 onwards, I'll try and get them up a minute for you and take a look. But game week 8, there is opportunities for players to come in. So yeah, game week 8 is looking like a possible wild card for me around this period. I think Fernandes will need to leave the team. I just think he possibly needs to go. Rodgers will need to go. Watkins will probably need to go. Gyökeres will probably need to come in. So yeah, there's a lot to do over this period for sure. Yeah. Transfers, wildcards are going to be happening over the next few weeks, that's for sure. Start Anderson or Porro. I would play Anderson, whether that be the defender or the attacker. Do I captain Wood over Haaland? I don't mind it. I think Arsenal are elite defensively. I don't think the big numbers that we saw from Haaland will be reflected in this Arsenal game. So yes, I don't mind Wood, but what I am trying to say is I think Igor Jesus is going to get game time. He's going to get game time. And just giving a clean slate to everybody. He's got to understand who is his main guys. And maybe this Igor Jesus, with the dynamism that he has that Wood doesn't, is something that Ange prefers. We don't really know yet whether he's going to be flexible or not in his tactics. Start 2 out of Senesi, Van de Ven and Reinders. So you have Petrovic in goal. Well, I'll go double Bournemouth because even if Bournemouth can see Senesi is so good for defensive contributions, you're picking up some points there. Then it comes down to Reinders versus Van de Ven. I'm in a position where I'm playing the attacker in Reinders, but I understand why people might be leaning towards Van de Ven. I probably would say Van de Ven is the better choice. So maybe in your case, I would go for that combination of Van de Ven and Senesi. I think Reinders is going to struggle in this game. I just think Arsenal are so good. In my case, I just don't think it makes sense playing double Spurs over Reinders. So I'm just going to roll out Reinders and hope for the best. Should I start Tavernier or Reinders this game week? If you have Tavernier, I need to just check what his game time's been like. So Tavernier, yeah, I think Tavernier I would start. Yeah, I would start Tavernier 100% for sure. Oh, I just need to update on here. Sorry, guys. Give me a second. Give me 2 seconds. Sorry, guys. Just got to update my selection. Please do let me know in the poll, guys, as well, who you were going for as captain. Do I sell versus Semenyo or do I wait? Oh, would I be surprised if Verts is bench this week? No. They're so good in the midfield areas. I think Verts Semenyo would be a big temptation, but you also have to ask yourself, are you in a position like me where you could do the move, but do you need a bit more flexibility in game week 6? Possibly. So the only reason why you wouldn't make that move is that maybe the 2 transfers is necessary in the following game week. Maybe we'll get some early news. Let's just check. Are we getting early news on Liverpool? If you are planning that move, I would make it as close to the deadline as possible. We might get some news saying, oh, by the way, Verts is bench. Then you've got the easiest move of your life. You just obviously sell him for Semenyo in that situation. Just double check this. Sorry, guys. Okay. Going for Mateta captain this week, a shout? Yes, I do think a shout. But what I would say is that Glasner's come out and stated that he is slightly struggling with fatigue because he's played all the minutes and Nketiah is back. Could Mateta maybe get limited minutes? Maybe. I still think he plays the majority. But Mateta for captain is fine. Do I love it more than Salah and all? No. Ollie, sorry, you put something in WhatsApp. Let me check a minute. Let me get that up on my screen. Ollie, your team. So you've got... Ollie, was your original question about bench boosts then? Because I've lost your original comment, so please do let me know. Were you planning on bench boosting? But your general team this week looks fine. Looks fine. Just read it out. Sanchez, Porro, Cucurella, Munoz, Gakpo. I think it looks okay. Would I make the Sanchez move that you mentioned? No, I think you can absolutely wait on that move. I wouldn't be making that. So yeah, let me know what the original question was, buddy, and I'll answer that one. Sorry on that. But I think your team looks okay this week to roll out. Would I prefer playing Nico Williams? Possibly, but I don't really know who I'd bench. Maybe Nico Williams over Pedro Porro would be my one suggestion. More than natural, do you think Ekitike will start and who to captain? Haaland, Semenyo? Yeah, so I personally think Ekitike will start. I think he's had a really good start to the season. I see no reason why he wouldn't start. Isak obviously started in the Champions League. Who to captain? Haaland, Semenyo, Ekitike. I'd be very tempted by a Semenyo captaincy out of that 3, to be honest with you. Be very captured by a Semenyo captaincy. Just check this out. Just got to answer this Patreon one a minute, guys. I do apologise. we go. Right, what have we got? Semenyo to replace Mbeumo or Reinders? Yes, I prefer Semenyo over both of those 100%. Do I think Mbeumo could do well against Chelsea? Possibly. Chelsea played against Munich. Man United have had a week off. I'm a Chelsea fan, and I'm controversially saying United nick a result here. I really do. I really think Man United nick a result against Chelsea. Would I do... I would... If you got the money to do Reinders to Semenyo, then of course I prefer that move because I think Mbeumo offers value. But Mbeumo's a lot of money to pay in that team. I'd much rather do like a direct replacement in Mbeumo to Semenyo. But do I think it's the week to do it against a Chelsea team that played Champions League football and are still quite ropey defensively? No, I don't, controversially. Ollie, sorry, I got your first question. Since I wildcarded in 2, now I wanted to know whether I should free hit in 6 or gain an extra transfer and then have it for 8. Should I send my game week 18 plan? Well, Ollie, I think in your team position right now, with the team that you sent over, I think if we just deal with the here and now in your situation, free hit 6 is absolutely on the cards. Don't think your team needs a transfer, more importantly. So I'd roll out the team that you got. I probably would put yourself in a position where I don't love Pedro Porro this week. Maybe Spurs do keep a clean sheet, but, you know, I'm only playing Pedro Porro myself out of desperation. Like, I don't have any other options. So I would be tempted to maybe play Nico Williams over Pedro Porro, possibly. Or, controversially, you lean towards taking one of the Chelsea defence out in that side because you're going double Chelsea. But for this week in isolation, I'd roll that transfer and give yourself some flexibility in game week 6 and allow yourself, because game week 6 is all about owning Man United, owning Forest, where you've got double Forest and you've got Erling Haaland, you've got the 2 key components of that. So if game week 6 free hit doesn't feel absolutely essential for you. Is Vert's bench? No idea on that one. Will Isak start? Unfortunately, again, no idea. But if you're in a position where you are obviously dealing with these players, then my recommendation would be waiting until as close to the deadline as possible, which of course is in just over an hour. Would I start Senesi or Murillo? I would start Senesi. And even if they both were fit, I still probably would be tempted by Senesi for those defensive contributions. No news on Liverpool yet, unfortunately. Sell Ekitike to Pedro. I would keep Ekitike myself and hope for the best. Would you play Sanchez, Henderson or Dubravka? I'm 4 mil in the world. You have 3 goalkeepers? How does that work? Would you play Sanchez, Henderson or Dubravka for this game week in isolation? Like, I'm playing Sanchez over Dubravka. Maybe that's the wrong way to play it, possibly. In your boat, Palace away. I don't mind Henderson as a choice, to be honest with you. Emmanuel, thank you so much for the kind words there, my friend. Hopefully it's offered a little bit of value. That is the whole purpose of it. Hopefully a little bit. I can see in terms of the captaincy, 64% to go for Mo Salah, 11 on Haaland, 15 on Semenyo, and 10 are going for other. Mitchell saying I've gone probably wildcard in 6 if Villa and Forest don't perform. Should I roll the transfer now or bring in Virgil in place of Murillo? Yeah, so like I'm in that same predicament. Like I could just do Virgil in for Murillo, but have I also seen enough from Everton offensively and Liverpool defensively to think to myself, is a clean sheet absolutely happening in that Liverpool game? I think it's not a certainty, to be honest with you. I think Liverpool are still showing their frailties at times. No doubt Van Dijk is playing unbelievable, but I still think there are problems in this Liverpool team defensively. So, yes, I think it's a good move. I think it covers you long term, but also we got to remember, have you got Arsenal? Because Arsenal is the key one from 7 onwards. So you could do Van Dijk for 2 and then use him as a cash cow for Gabriel later down the line. That's perfectly fine, but do I see Everton maybe nicking a goal with the attacking players that they do have and the ball carriers they have? Yes, I do at times. Reece, yes, I personally would keep a Sanchez for now. I will wildcard him out whenever I do so for probably a David Raya. But this week, if he got dropped, don't mind it. Dubravka comes in and it is what it is. In terms of the whole situation right now with Burnley, because there's a lot of emphasis on Burnley right now. Look, Burnley had to shithouse the game against Liverpool in game week 4 to get any sort of result. Scott Parker knew that. Ange plays crazy football. So do I see a situation where Scott Parker is going to play 11 men once again against an offensive Forest team? Possibly. Possibly he does. I think Ange is going to take a while to adapt. And this might be a great time for Burnley to play Forest while they're transitioning from a counter-attacking team to a possession-based team and obviously a very aggressive defensive side out of possession. I think it'd be foolish for Scott Parker not to try and, hit them in them areas. Do I see a Burnley clean sheet? Possibly. Am I as bullish as everyone else? No. I'm not as bullish as everyone else. Do I give Watkins one final week versus Sunderland or bring it? Dan, you know the answer to this, my friend. You know the answer to this. You keep Watkins for one more week. Arsenal are the best defence in the world. Categorically. I don't see any team better than them. There might be some teams playing in other leagues but who are putting up better numbers. But I just think week in, week out, we know Arsenal deliver defensively. And when they don't, it's either down to 10 men or something. A worldie, like the Szoboszlai goal. At Anfield, remember. So for that reason, I think you keep Watkins for one more week and then we reassess afterwards. A brilliant cash cow for game week 6. The problem, every single week for the next 3, home of Fulham. Home against Fulham. Oh, is that the week he gets good? 7, home to Burnley. Is that the week he gets good? You got to rip the Band-Aid eventually. But it's not this week because Haaland's away against Arsenal. Now look, Man City might go rock up against Arsenal and just bop them off the pitch. Do I see it happening? No. I still think City have their problems themselves. But it just makes no sense to me. It makes no sense to get rid of Watkins this week for Haaland. I have Murillo and double Villa attack. Okay. Murillo and double Villa attack. Which is bigger need to use or transfer on? Best Murillo replacement. Okay, so we don't know what's going to happen with Murillo. I'm putting myself, just from my perspective, because I'm in the exact same boat to you, where I've got a first sub that I'm absolutely happy to come in. So Steve comes in for Murillo, fine, addresses the situation. If you're in the same boat as me and you can have a first sub come in, then that would probably be where I lean towards, because Villa are absolutely a sell. You could do Rodgers to Semenyo, you could do Murillo to Van Dijk, Gabriel, whatever. But the reason why I'm not doing it myself is because game week 6, I think, is a big crossing road. And like I said here with the fixtures, lots is happening over the next few weeks. 7 onwards, Arsenal become essential. I'm going to put them in the essential category. I know people don't like that word, but I'm putting them in the essential category. Game week 6 onwards, City's attacking fixtures are so good. You're going to want a piece of that. So 5, as you can see, is pretty rough. There will no doubt be a few players that just have an incredible game week and we ask ourselves, why the hell don't we own them? But what I'm saying to you is this. Long term, there's stuff we want to buy. And that's why having the transfers available is great. Now, of course, you could just resolve everything and in game week 7 or 6, just wildcard and get the players you will want. But if you're like me, where you're still a little bit uncertain what you want to do with your chips, then giving yourself flexibility in game week 6, I think, is the better move. Murillo replacement, so all comes out to your money. But you either get Arsenal now, kind of hope for the best in the next 2 with them in place for 7 onwards, or you get Liverpool, who are good for the next couple, and then you see what happens. Let me just put my team back up. Again, for those that are asking about my team, this is how we're looking. I'm going to roll my transfer. I'm kind of taking the pain this week for flexibility in 6. Yes, I could do Murillo to a better pick. Could do Rogers to Semenyo. Is what it is. I just want a bit more information for one more week myself. Just trying to catch up where I am in the comments. GV saying many have Watkins. We need to give him at least this game week before dumping him. I agree. I agree on that one. I just need to make sure I have posted my team out as well. Give me a second, guys. Apologies once again for the delay here. Just need to make sure I've got the right one. Goodness me, is that posted? Sorry guys, this is the worst content ever, but I just got to post this to make sure anyone in the YouTube members has seen it as well. Give me a second. Let me just put this in. Sorry guys, if you just joined, I do usually talk, but I've just posted a team a minute. Sorry. Cool, we're done. We're back. Okay, so ESAC news, nothing right now. I do apologize, guys. Ollie's saying also, Nacho, I was looking at the FPL. Oh, yeah, I've seen that, my friend. I've seen that. Sell Haaland to Watkins, bring him next week. Watkins to Haaland will be a popular transfer next week. Yes, do agree. I want to captain Wood, but he got subbed off last game, 15th minute. Mike just got with Salah. Yeah, Salah for me is the standout captain. I think those Wood minutes are a slight concern. And it's a reason why in game week 6, I'm all aboard getting rid of Wood, even though he's got Sunderland at home. The reason being is, let me just double check this fixtures. Yeah, so it just clarifies it even more for me. So just for context, Chris Wood has got, let me try and get this up. Hopefully you can see this. Perfect. So Burnley today, 3 p.m. Let's just hope Chris Wood starts. Then they've got Real Betis away on the Wednesday. The following Saturday, they've got Sunderland at home. And then on the following Thursday, they have got whatever that team is. I'm not going to try and pronounce it. And then they've got Newcastle. Forest are coming into a tough time where they are going to have to try and manage their squad. For me, it makes a lot of sense. A lot of sense. I think hopefully Chris Wood starts against Burnley. If Igor Jesus starts against Real Betis, happy days. Chris Wood, keep him in the team possibly for the Sunderland game, sell someone else. But you know you want him gone regardless after the Sunderland game. So I personally am kind of hoping Chris Wood starts against Burnley, starts against Real Betis. By the way, I don't think that happens. And then Igor Jesus plays against Sunderland. We don't really know what way this is going to go. And it's a real sticky spot to be in. So for that reason, we just assess game week 6 as it is. But the Betis game will really show who those minutes are going to go to in game week 7. So just be cautious of that when you are looking to sell somebody. But that's my current plan here. The more I think about it, the more I'm slightly concerned with Chris Wood. But I do expect him to start. Today. Who is better to play today as the 7th player, 3 at the back, Reinders or Dewsbury Hall? It probably makes sense to go Dewsbury Hall, doesn't it? Like I'm contradicting myself because I'm saying Reinders here, but I do think Liverpool are worse defensively. But Reinders has just been picking up some really interesting positions. Maybe the answer is Dewsbury Hall, but I'm just going to go Reinders myself, just because it's City attack. I want to captain. Yeah, I've covered that one. Should I go Saka to Hudson-Odoi to try get again, Daniel? Maybe address that next week. The problem is, if Saka is suddenly available from game week 6 onwards, you don't really want to sell him because he becomes an incredible differential. Start Juve or Porro or neither and buy... Oh, if you're buying Xavi, then no, I don't like that. I wouldn't be buying Xavi for an away game against Brighton off the back of a Champions League game. I'd rather just start someone. And of the two, I think you could flip a coin, but I probably would just go for Pedro Porro, just. Yeah, Dan, that's fair, buddy. Chris, Munoz captain, Gibbs, White and Milenkovic bench, Steve in. Is that what you're doing? If so, fair play. Gert Robert is saying, start Gabriel over Gyökeres or João Pedro. Already have Ray and goal. If it was me, I'd be starting Gyökeres. I'd go Raya. And I would start Gyökeres over João Pedro. I think City is still suspect defensively. I'm planning Salah to Declan Rice, fair. And any one of my strikers to Haaland in game week 7, get Gabriel. Yeah, I think that's a very popular strategy that a lot of people are going to go down. Caicedo, look, he's fine if you want to go there. He'll rack up defensive contributions every single week, pretty much. He ain't going to score bangers every week, though. He's fine. He's fine. Parma captain, don't mind it. But of course, you do know that he limped off a little bit of a groin injury. We don't really know the extent of it, though. So it's one of those, really, where you are obviously treading a little bit carefully. But I would like to think that he will be fine, fingers crossed. What do you think about Livermento's minutes? I expect them to be good, to be honest with you. I think he's playing left back. Once Lewis Hall maybe introduces himself back in, Livermento goes right back. Like, I think he's one of their key players at the back there. So yeah, I think Livermento is a good choice. Am I scared of the early kickoff curse? Yes, but do I just rate Salah? Still less than I used to, but I still think he's a good pick. And yeah, the early curse is painful. I thankfully will be at football by then, so I will just have this false hope in the back of my mind that Salah's already scored a hat-trick while I'm playing football, hopefully. Why are people selling in die? Probably just because they're looking at the fixture ahead rather than long-term. I mean, the long-term isn't also great. That's okay. Back-to-back home games, perfectly fine. Long-term, they're okay. The fixtures, they're not too bad. Reinders or Doku? I think the answer is Reinders. I think long-term we know his minutes are better, even though he's less exciting. He still picks up some great positions. Like, if we're looking at the numbers for both. So, Reinders, as you can see on your screens here, this is Reinders, by the way. He's been putting up decent numbers, you know. 0.37 expected goal involvement against Man United. Obviously, he had that one-on-one that he chipped Bayindir, but it just went past the post. Not the best against Brighton or Spurs, but then obviously had that amazing debut against Wolves. So, Reinders, even though he kind of overperformed in game week 1, and we spoke about this on the channel, how that was a performance that was incredible, but man, like, he's going to do well to do that every week. But he has ticked over nicely. I think he's a key player in this team. I think he'll be a 90-minute man for the foreseeable future. I still think he's a great pick. In terms of Doku, when he's in that box, Jesus Christ, he's phenomenal. So his minutes, that kind of speaks for itself right now. His expected goal involvement is exactly what it has been for the last season and a half, 2 years, where he has these games where he's just phenomenal. He'll bag a hat-trick or 4 goals, and then he'll disappear for 5 weeks, 6 weeks, 2 months, 3 months. Then he'll have his incredible moment. What you're seeing here is an incredibly short sample, small sample size, but this is very, very consistent with Doku. Again, minutes have to be taken into account here. Like, I can't be looking at this against Brighton and using it as a reference point like he done against Man United, but we've seen him enough. Unless he evolves as a player, as a finisher, and his final decision making, You'll get games where he puts up one expected goal involvement, and then he'll put up nothing. And his minutes are so ropey, the answer is Reinders, unfortunately. Why you have Bruno Fernandes low? Again, I get it. I think Bruno is obviously a player that gets hated on. I get it. His position is not fantastic. I get it. Still think he's a good pick. Would I be buying him now? No. Don't get me wrong. I'm going to be buying him now. But would I be in a position where if I owned him, I keep him? 100%. 100% I'll be keeping him. Something we have to remember is, doesn't play Champions League football, no European football. While other teams are out doing their stuff midweek, he is the one that is obviously not featuring. And that is beneficial to him. Sorry guys, we're just seeing if there's been any embargoed sort of quotes on Murillo, possibly. I mean, I don't really trust. Yeah, like I said, the last words on Murillo was that, like, we hope he plays. I personally think he doesn't. But my logic is that I'm just going to start him, knowing that I've got a Steve as first sub that's going to replace him. Yeah, there's nothing really being said about Murillo. There's classic people being like, I've heard from my source that Murillo is out, but we all know that they are just lying to get some attention. Do we reckon Palmer will start? Yeah, I think he will start. But again, if it's a groin injury, anyone's had a groin injury, it's like really limits you. Like, it's not like it's a knock on the knee that you can kind of just take painkillers. Or once your groin goes, like, you can't really do much. So we don't really know the extent of it. Bench boost Sanchez, King, Concert and Van de Ven. Don't mind that. Don't mind that. You're obviously rolling the dice a little bit with King. He might eventually get his benching, but I don't think that's a bad bench boost at all. No, if you want to get out of the way, I think that's absolutely fine to do so. What do you think about my starting 11 and bench? Raya, fine. Lacroix, Cucurella, Livramento. Yep. Kudu, Semenyo. Okay. Dubravka, Van de Ven, which is fair. Senesi and... Okay, so controversially, I'll play Senesi over Livramento, personally. I think Bournemouth have been rested all week. Newcastle played away against... at home against Barcelona. Senesi, phenomenal for defensive contributions. I think the floor of Senesi is better than that of Livramento. So I personally would play Senesi over Livramento myself. What are your thoughts on Forest and Villa, guys? Good fixtures, really bad form. Yeah. If you own them, you keep them for the next two. I don't think they are a desperate sell. You don't buy them. You don't buy them, though. Anyone buying Villa to be a bit different, I get. You might get lucky. But trust me, as an owner, you don't want to be buying these guys right now. Right, guys, what we're going to have to do is a 5-minute super Q&A, because then we're going to have to wrap it up, unfortunately, because I am going to have to go live over on TikTok as well. So we'll do a 5-minute blitz Q&A. Just to give you a bit of context on my team for those that are maybe new that have joined. Yes, I know Murillo is a huge doubt, but I'm just going to start him with Esteve as my auto sub, because I think Murillo either starts or he gets 0 minutes and isn't in the squad. Van de Ven for me is behind Esteve as a pick. Personally, because I got Pedro Porro as well, I don't really want to double up on Spurs against a Brighton team that I am anticipating to score. Dewsbury Hall versus Reinders is absolutely a debate, but I think Reinders has picked up some interesting positions. I think Dewsbury Hall will pick up some interesting positions. Could I see David Moyes maybe putting Dewsbury Hall into almost a flat 3 and limiting him in the final third possibly? So for that reason, we're just going to go for Reinders and hope for the best. Dubravka on the bench. Going to lean towards Sanchez, but I don't know if I love it. The plan then for game week 6 will have 2 free transfers and give myself an Erling Haaland plan if I want to go there. So get your questions in, guys. I'm going to blitz it now. Akshay saying, hi mate, what do you think about my wildcard team? Vicario, Senesi, Porro. No, I wouldn't have Porro. Firstly, wouldn't have Porro. Palmer, Gakpo, wouldn't have Gakpo. Caicedo, Semenyo, Haaland, Evan Nielsen with Dubravka, California. So, a couple of things. No to Porro. No to Gakpo. No Enquiries. My advice would be go check out my Game Week 5 wildcard video that I posted a couple of days ago. I've gone into detail about the team that I selected, the reasons behind certain players. That's going to be way more beneficial than me kind of telling you right now what to do with a team that isn't in front of me. So I would recommend that video, mate, because that was a lot of thought into that one. Play Williams or Porro already starting sells. Yeah, in that case, I don't mind it because I don't think Forest are as good defensively as what they were under Nuno, or as predictable. Bench Reinders or Ndiaye, both tough fixtures. They are both tough fixtures, but I would start Ndiaye over Reinders. Now, it's very conflicting to what I'm doing here, but you have to remember Ndiaye is the penalty taker. For that reason, I think that puts him clearly above both Dewsbury Hall and Reinders as a choice. Grealish or Semenyo, worth it. This week, of course, it is. But then the following week, decent fixture for Everton. I'd probably just keep Grealish. Is it wise to sell Johnson for Palmer and Murillo for Timber? Yes. Don't mind it. But would I buy Timber this week? No, not really. I think if there's any team that's going to score against Arsenal, it's going to be City. Should I bench boost with Dubravka, Esteve, Juve and Elliot Anderson? Yes, I think that is perfectly fine if you want to. But you have to remember the bench boost comes down to your own gut feeling. That's fine. But I don't really know what your team looks like in future game weeks to tell you whether there's a better one or not. What are your plans on Haaland versus Burnley game week 6? As of right now, and I am very conscious things can change, is to do this, my friend. Mo Salah to Semenyo, Chris Wood to Haaland, but trust me, it's easier said than done. Trying to sell Mo Salah is a tough ask, and we know what will happen. Salah probably scores today and asks the question to FPL managers, do you really want to sell me? But that's the current plan. The reason for Wood as opposed to Watkins and João Pedro is that I personally think Igor Jesus will keep getting minutes, and Forest are playing midweek against Real Betis in a Europa League fixture. Of course, Villa have got the same situation, but I know Watkins' minutes are much more secure than that of Chris Wood's. Should I sell Dewsbury Hall and buy Bergvall or Caicedo? Those are both very, very unnecessary moves. What do you think of Mateta's minutes? I think he will start, but I think he is obviously, as Glasner stated, playing with a little bit of fatigue. So just be cautious of that, but not enough to sell him. Williams or Reinders, I'd play Williams. Liverpool don't have a great defence, whereas Arsenal have. That said, for Haaland to score, Reinders' creativity will come in handy. Agree on that one. Best Arsenal player to buy, they're on fire. Gyökeres, I think, is great. Gabriel, also fantastic. Saka will be once he's back. Start Ndiaye or Van de Ven. I would always play the penalty taker in Ndiaye. I think Liverpool defensively still have problems. Covered that one, covered that one, covered that one, covered that one. Covered that. Ndiaye, Reinders and Dewsbury Hall in that order. Got it. Yes, that's exactly how I would rank them myself. Is there any news on Murillo trying to decide, should I bench boost? I wouldn't bench boost with Murillo in your team. I think you'd have to make a transfer in order to do so and guarantee yourself minutes. I personally just don't know what the situation is with Murillo. If I had to guess, it would be that he doesn't play. That would be my guess. Best Dewsbury Hall replacement? Don't really think you should sell him personally. If you have to, I don't think any of the options available to you are great this week. Reinders, Elliot Anderson maybe, but what does he become under Ange? We don't really know. Simmons or Wood looking to wildcard in 6 or 7, well, then you're looking at a 1-game week punt, and then it would be Chris Wood for this week, my opinion. Who is the safest Everton pick? I think the best pick is still Ndiaye being the penalty taker. Would I play Tarkowski? It depends who the other defenders are, but I think Tarkowski's floor is 3 points. 2 for appearance, 2 for defense contributions, maybe a negative for a yellow card because of the occasional goals conceded. Right. Do apologise, guys. I am going to have to wrap it up there. Thank you so much for tuning in. Always massively appreciate you guys on the stream. And I have to wrap up there. Cheers, guys.